Are you serious? Are you serious? Good morning, everybody. Get a cup of coffee, everybody, and calm down. Get some coffee and calm down. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay because Vice President Kamala Harris says it's going to be okay. Now, matter of fact, speaking of the Vice President, before I say any more, did you know that two members of Congress actually went to Afghanistan and back yesterday? And that's Congressman Meyer, a Republican out of Michigan, and Congressman Moulton, a Democrat out of Massachusetts, went secretly to Afghanistan without approval from anyone. They didn't ask the State Department. They didn't ask the White House. They didn't even ask Nancy Pelosi. These guys went on their own, went right to Kabul, and stood around and talked to the, some of the soldiers, went out there and looked at the misery, and they said it was indescribable. The misery and the chaos and the carnage and the confusion and the absolute and they said these young Americans, soldiers and Marines, were doing everything they could to try to process this, but it is an absolute impossibility, basically. And there's no way that we're going to get all the Americans out of Afghanistan by the 31st of August. Matter of fact, we couldn't even get them out if we tried by September 11. This is a disaster waiting to get worse. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. Please pray about that. But meanwhile, let me put a shout out right now before I tell you about what the Vice President is doing, and that is noblegoldinvestment.com. That's www.noblegoldinvestment.com. This morning would be a great morning to pick up the phone and call Colin Plume or one of his associates at noblegoldinvestment.com. Pick up the phone and call them at 877-646-5347. It is probably time. The stock market is getting very weary, and it's going to get worse. I can promise you it is, because of the housing bubble that's coming. And not even counting all this chaos in Afghanistan and all this confusion that we're hearing and seeing out of the White House. I mean, I'm telling you, there's going to be a housing bubble, and the stock market is going to take a dip. And you'll want to have some of your assets tied in precious metals. So pick up the phone and call Colin Plume right now at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. If you do, and when you do, and if I can show you, boy, it is hard to do that, isn't it? The reflection just doesn't want to work right. I mean, this is such a beautiful 1 ounce pure silver American, the Liberty coin, pure silver proof. 1 ounce of pure silver proof. I'm telling you, it's a beautiful, beautiful coin, and they'll give this to you. Okay, they'll give it to you if you set up a gold IRA with noblegoldinvestment.com. All right. Now, let me tell you what's going on. Wow. It's quite extraordinary, really, what's happening. But the Vice President certainly has really kind of stunned, actually, by what the Vice President. Where did my article go I just had on this subject? Is it here? Yeah, here it is. Okay. The Vice President Kamala Harris, we don't understand why she went all the way out there to Singapore and then to Vietnam, and some of her staff over at the embassy got their heads zapped by something. We don't know if it was the Havana syndrome or what, but and she's had some stumbling going on. But anyway, while in Vietnam, she raised the pressure on China, as the Chinese media is now accusing America of sowing division or sowing discord in Asia. American Vice President Kamala Harris urged the Vietnamese to pressure China during her Southeast Asian tour. But Chinese state-run media argued that attempts to rally regional countries against Beijing are doomed to failure. We need to find ways to pressure and raise the pressure. Frankly, she said on Beijing, to abide by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And she's right about that. To challenge its bullying and excessive maritime claims, Harris said Wednesday during a meeting with Vietnamese President there in Hanoi. But the vice president laid support for the elevating of U.S.-Vietnam relations towards strategic partnership and giving Hanoi a third former U.S. Coast Guard cutter to better defend its interests in the South China Sea. China and Vietnam are among the nations that have claims on disputed areas in the region, with Beijing having set up military bases on artificial islands in the South China Sea. The U.S. regularly carries out so-called freedom of navigation missions, and you guys know that. We've been talking about that a lot, how that we keep sending our aircraft carriers and destroyers and different battleships into different locations, especially in the straits there between China and Taiwan. But we know that we're also buzzing by these 5 new artificial island runways and bases that have been built by the Chinese in the South China Sea. We're going everywhere to make sure the freedom of navigation international law stays in play. And ever so often, you got to sail through there to prove that it is needed. And so we do it. So does some other nations like Australia, Canada, the UK, France, and others. Now, China and Vietnam are among the nations that have claims on some disputed areas in the region, with Beijing having set up military bases on artificial islands in the South China Sea. And the U.S. regularly carries out so-called nations that have claims on disputed areas. The U.S. regularly carry out so-called freedom of navigation missions, sailing warships close to China's waters, which Beijing views as very provocative. They see this as a very provocative move. U.S. regularly want to continue to carry out these freedom of navigation missions. And Harris' remarks came after a belligerent speech she gave in Singapore on Tuesday, slamming China for undermining the rules-based order and unlawful territorial claims. Now, my good friend Agent 2020 has sent out some significant in research for me this morning, and I'll be talking about a lot of things on our live broadcast. We'll go live with our regular scheduled broadcast at 12 noon, our program on the coming apocalypse. And I want you to be ready for it, because simply this is a world, just because all eyes are on Afghanistan and it is a disaster, there's other things happening around the world that directly affect NATO and the United States, the Middle East, and basically a shifting toward a new world order. Beijing state-run media, though, says Harris wants to raise tensions in the region while pointing a finger at China and accusing it of coercion and intimidation. Well, I have to agree with the vice president. She's right. I mean, she's sounding a little bit like what Trump was saying. Take on China. I don't know if this is the right time, but that's apparently what the Biden administration is trying to do. Is Biden will deal with Afghanistan, Harris is going to take on China. In an editorial in the Global Times, and that might be, guys, I'm just going to be honest with you. It appears to me that they are they're keeping distance from the Afghanistan debacle and disaster and the loss of lives that's probably going to come, already happening, and will come from that. Going to keep her free of that. They don't want her to be tarnished by this. Instead, they're positioning her to be the strong one that's going to take on China, because in case there is a removal of Biden from the White House for several different reasons, they're wanting her to be positioned to take over as the commander-in-chief. So Harris's trip from Singapore to Hanoi was delayed for several hours due to a report of recent possible Havana syndrome in the Vietnamese capital, according to the U.S. Embassy in Hanoi. Similar phrasing was previously used by the U.S. to describe a mysterious set of symptoms experienced by American diplomats, staff, and that's why it's called the Havana syndrome. It's because people started passing out, massive migraine headaches, dizziness, nausea, hearing, and memory loss. Some of the staff, some of Harris's staff was affected as they were waiting for the vice president to arrive in Vietnam. I think that was China sending a message to Harris, don't mess with us. But she continued to stand up and put pressure on China. Let's see what this all means in the big picture. We'll find out more about this as we go forward. But certainly, this was a gutsy call, and I think they have to do something. Something's going to happen. I don't see Biden making it 4 years. I'm not sure I see Biden surviving the rest of this year as in the White House. Maybe he does. Maybe he stays another year or so. But one thing's for sure, I think they're positioning Harris to look stronger. And let's see how that plays out. I want to thank all of you for being here. It's going to be a great show. It's going to come up. We're going to start at 12 noon Eastern. So pray one for another. Now, there's a ton of stuff going on. You're right. There is the audit in Arizona. Distraction. I think Philip Anderson's right. I can't talk about that on this forum. But I can talk about it on the app, and I will. I'll be doing a couple apps videos today. So thank you for just throwing it out there, Philip. That's you're right. Guys, I'll see you at 12 noon right here on the Coming Apocalypse on this YouTube channel. I'll see you guys then. Are you serious? Are you serious? Did I say I agreed with the vice president? Well, sometimes.